Bellefontaine, and you're listening to the HomeBuyer's Hour on WCPT AM 820, where the facts matter. And today it's going to be just Patrick, Joey, and myself, and we're going to try and talk a little bit about our professions and unique items that are going to come in here so that it helps you. But first of all, I'd like to introduce my favorite attorney. His name is Patrick Loftus. Patrick, please tell us about you and your company and why I like you so much.
Forget everything you know about lawyers.
Oh my God.
Because I am different from all them other guys. Patrick Loftus, real estate lawyer, and I always like to emphasize that I'm a real estate lawyer. I'm not one of those dabblers who's doing this, that, and the other thing. You're not going to find me up on the 22nd floor arguing motions in the law division. I don't do car accident cases. I got a guy if you are in a car accident, so you can still call me. But listen, actually don't call me. Find me on the socials. You can find me on Instagram, Loftus_law, LOF like Frank, T like Tom, US like Sam _law. On TikTok at Loftus Law. If you're a more serious person, you want to find me on LinkedIn, just search me, I guess.
Sounds good. LinkedIn, I like that. That's where the serious people go. Ugh. Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd. Obviously, I'm not serious. I don't think I spent enough time on LinkedIn. Joey, give us a rundown about you and your business, and how do people get hold of you, please?
Why, hello there. I'm Joey Mathews, NMLS 130694, the VA Loan Nerd. You can find me at thevaloannerd.com across all social medias as at the VA Loan Nerd. You could call or text me at 630-235-2405. Email me at show@thehomebuyer'shour.com. If you find me on LinkedIn, it will be very boring for you because I've been on it twice in the last year. Anywho, what do? I kind of watch the markets. I try to help guide people in the home buying process. I try to make mortgages not boring because, at the end of the day, are numbers fun ever? You remember math in third grade? It was terrible, right? Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That was the greatest math ever I had. I learned my multiplication tables. Mrs. Molesky, she taught me math in the third grade. That's how much I liked it so much. I remember my third grade teacher's name.
They didn't start teaching math until third grade back in those days?
I will also confess that I got yelled at by Mr. Ned in the third grade. And for those that don't know who Mr. Ned is, he was the ringmaster on Bozo's Circus. And in third grade, we got to go to Bozo's Circus on a field trip. And lo and behold, it was Mrs. Molesky's son who was sitting next to me, and he was like 19 years old. And Mr. Ned was asking everybody how old they were, and I forgot her son's name, but he goes, "I'm 5." And for some reason, I just felt that was the funniest thing in the world. I go, Mr. Ned, he's 5. And Mr. Ned told me to shut up, and I was so sad.
You can't say shut up at the Bozo show.
He did. We were on a commercial break, so I guess it's okay. But it was real funny because I had this super sad look on my face, right? And the camera zoomed in on me when they came out of commercial, and all of a sudden you see your face on TV, and they turned that frown upside down, and I was Mr. Happy again until I got back to the classroom. And Mrs. Molesky chewed the poop out of me. It was unbelievable. I got in so much trouble.
Please tell me there's a recording you have somewhere on tape.
I did not have that on tape, Devin. I'm so sorry. I would give it to you if I did.
Devin, I've got good news for you. There's somewhere in existence a VHS of both me and my sister on the Bozo show. and I can tell you, so speaking of the Bozo show.
Oh, my goodness.
Which is absolutely a topic that we discussed going into this. It wasn't. Spoiler. But, so, Jesus, I'm revealing too much about myself right now, but why not? No one's listening, right? So when I'm growing up, my mom was a clown. That was like kind of her side hustle. She's a real estate broker, but her side hustle was being a clown back when clowns weren't creepy. Or maybe they were, I don't know. But she was, do you remember Bressler's ice cream?
Of course.
So she was the Bressler's ice cream clown Scoopy. They had the Bresslers. Devin's just like, I don't know what any of this is.
No, it's not going to end.
So she was Scoopy the Clown, and they had Scoopy the Clown on the Bozo show. And so, of course, because she was on the Bozo show, she was able to bring both my sister and me along to be in the audience. Now, I believe I was 9. My sister would have been 7 or 8 or 6, whatever. We're 2 years apart. Now they give you when you come in, they give it's much smaller studio as you would recall. This is
It's
way
small.
too long.
Yeah.
Which is sort of normal. The cameras usually make it seem like The Price is Right. It's probably the same thing. Jesus, man, I do not stay on topic. Point is, all right, they give you like a little like raffle style ticket with the number on it.
Yeah.
And you remember there's like was it Bozo Pewter or something like that? And if your number comes up, you get to go on the grand prize game. It's kind of rigged, right? So they rigged it to get both me and my sister on the grand prize game. Now, it's not as accurate as today's computers. The Bozo Pewter was not like, it didn't have like a Intel Core processor. It had probably, a different kind of processor.
We just spent 6 minutes talking about the Bozo show. We need to get back on track.
We don't.
We
I'm
don't?
not done
Okay.
yet. So my sister got to go on the grand prize game, and she was terrible. I think she got 2 buckets. I think she was absolutely just deer in headlights. But because they weren't able to rig the Bozo Pewter to get me on the grand prize game, I got to assist one of the other clowns doing a thing or whatever. So there is, to my point, there is a VHS somewhere, probably at my mom's house, of both me and my sister on the Bozo show. I don't have a VCR. I don't know how we would ever play it, but one of these days I'll find it.
We're going to find your Betamax too, and I'm sure we'll get that on there
and we'll
as well.
throw that on Instagram.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, I'm going to turn that off, and we're moving on to the real estate stuff.
You brought
here.
up the Bozo show.
I did. I'm so sorry I did. So my name is Charlie Bellefontaine. I own Chicagoland Home Inspectors. Our phone number is 312-544-9180. I'm going to spend a little time talking about radon and radon testing and the cost that it takes to test it, options you could do on your own, and is it even worth it? So we'll talk about that stuff in a little bit. Patrick is going to focus a little bit more on property taxes. And we're all going to chime in and help, and basically how to protect yourself and keep your taxes as low as possible. But first, we're going to start off with Joey. And Joey's going to talk about something that I don't have a darn clue what he's talking about, which talks about the history of bond yield pricing and more so how that affects today's rate. Because I just heard last night that we hit 8%. And I know we stayed steady in that 7% mark, and going up a notch is a little bit something. So, Joey, I'm all ears. Educate me something about this bond yield pricing.
Well, the first thing I want to do is talk about fancy ice cream, Viennetta.
Oh, my goodness.
Viennetta. All right, sorry. I've been holding on to that ever since you said fancy ice cream. Anyway.
I love ice cream.
All right, good times. We're all adults here and doing adult things.
Yeah, we're all shaking our head no over here.
So the bond yield pricing over the last so bond yields historically, right, is what the mortgage-backed securities market kind of pivots off of. You can usually
what is a bond yield? Just break it down for me.
Oh my gosh! All right.
What's basic to you is not basic to me.
Yeah, I know. So I'm googling the easiest way to break this down right now. All right.
I did 6 minutes on the Bozo show, so it's you can take your sweet time on bond yields. This is actually something we're supposed to be talking about.
When you're buying bonds, there's a guaranteed rate of return, a yield on it over a course of time. The 10-year Treasury note right now, if you were to buy it today, you'd be looking at a 4.25% yield on your return, right?
And every year, right?
Year over year, yeah.
If you
don't want, that's a poor investment otherwise.
Right. So if you have $10 and you invest it in a 10-year Treasury, each year you're getting what, 40 cents?
47. Yeah. 40 cents.
Yeah.
Which if you have $1 billion to invest, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So over time, yields have historically been significantly higher than they are right now, right? We are right now at a 4.25. We are trading right about where it was in 2006, 2007. Rates historically have traded about 2% higher than bond yields. Right now, we are seeing a larger chasm than that. We are closer to a 3% difference between bond yields and 30-year mortgage rates. When I'm talking about rates, I'm specifically talking about 30-year mortgage rates, conventional, right?
Okay.
Government rates are going to be slightly lower, and the obviously shorter-term rates are going to be lower as well because there's less risk on the shorter terms. Well, quote-unquote, less risk on the shorter terms. The yields in 2021 dropped under 1% when the Fed funds rate dropped to 0. And the economy came to a screeching halt due to restrictions from COVID, supply chain issue, all kinds of stuff, right? So if you were lucky enough to keep your job during that time, you were able to get it right in the 2s or 3s because, again, when yields are at 0 and if there's usually a 2 to 3% gap, that's where mortgage rates are going to fall, right? Makes sense? Everyone tracking? All right. So
let me just kind of jump in real quick. So it's basically like, if I am managing, let's say, a pension, right? A pension, it has to be very conservative with its investments, because if it doesn't have enough money to pay the people who are receiving those benefits post-retirement, it's a big problem, right? So the reason that it's important what that yield is, the rate of return on a 10-year treasury, is because 10-year treasuries, when you talk about a treasury, and Joey, correct anything that I get wrong here, but basically you are lending money to the U.S. government, and the reason that that returns such a low amount is because it's seen as just about the safest investment you can make. It's virtually guaranteed that you're going to get your money back plus whatever that rate of return you were promised, because basically not only can the U.S. government print its own money, but it also has the ability to increase taxes however much it needs in order to repay its debts. So when you talk about a large institutional investor like a pension fund investing money in a very low risk investment, that's kind of the benchmark as far as low risk, definitely going to get your money back. Mortgage is also low risk, not quite as low, which is why they've got to get a better return on that investment, even though it is still a pretty safe investment.
My years as a fireman, I was actually spending 6 years on our pension board, and I was actually the president of that stuff. We had financial investors. All right, that was way over my head. But I always know we were diversified, so we did have stocks, we did have bonds, and it seems like we would just move the dollars from one side to the other. And Joey helped me out with this. It seems that when the stocks did good, the bonds went down. When the stocks kind of were going down, the bonds went up. Is that somewhat true? That's what I noticed.
Kind of, sort of, right? They trade together. So if people are selling stocks, the prices of those stocks are going to drop. If they're selling bonds, the price or the yield on the bond is going to increase, right? Because they're not the same thing. We're looking at percentages versus dollar amounts. Okay. So if you're buying into the bond market and the bond is trading at a 4.25% yield, if more people buy into the bond market, then that yield is going to drop. It's going to shrink, right? So what we've been dealing with is the Fed has been trading off their balance sheet, which is significantly heavily based on bond securities, right?
That's so to say, isn't it?
I'm dying right now.
That's all good.
No, so during COVID, one of the things that the Fed did was they made policies for unlimited bond and MBS purchases, right? So they just bought, and
mortgage-backed securities.
Now, mortgage-backed securities, and now they're selling everything off. So that's why you see yields increasing like they are. And again, I know, Tryler, you were on the pension board before, but at a 4.25%, I mean, that's at a 3 is when people start looking at buying bonds, but at a 4.25%, I would still anticipate purchase bonds. I don't know how much the Fed is still holding in the bond market, but I mean, depending on how this sell-off, I don't know how much higher it's going to go. Prior to COVID, bond yields were trading at about a 3, 2.5 to 3, so that felt like pretty normal for about a 10-year period from 2012 to 2022 after the Great Recession, right? But now, again, bond yields are back to pre-Great Recession yields. So,
Yes.
I don't know. We'll see where we're going.
Yeah, exactly. And I get it that rates have to go up, right? I mean, we can't keep it at 0. I mean, everybody, including my great government, has to make some money.
Well, it's not just that. If money's free, then there's no disincentive to borrow, and then the money supply goes up, and then inflation happens. And so not only can you not keep it at 0 if you have any wits about you. I mean, just Google the economy in Turkey if you want to find out what happens when you are allergic to increasing interest rates. What you will end up doing is basically causing your currency to collapse. It's bad for the economy as a whole.
I remember when that happened in Mexico too with the peso, just because we traveled down there so much, and then the prices go up, and I think they ended up having to do the new peso, which was 10% of the old peso.
Yeah.
So they came up with, what is that called?
I'm not sure. I'm more familiar with what they did in Brazil, which is basically it's the nuclear option. If everything you've tried is not working to get inflation to come down, what they came up with a very clever, and I'm going to butcher the details. So if you want to know more, if you want to know and get an education about economics in general, the Planet Money podcast from NPR, they're not sponsoring us, but I listen to it every week. In fact, I'm like a sponsoring member in that. Like
Nice.
What do I pay? $5 a month, but then I don't have to listen to ads. But that's how much I like Planet Money, is that I'm like, you know what, have some of my money.
We can do that? We could charge people to listen to us?
Do you want a Patreon? We could do that.
I think we go broke in a heartbeat. Joey, we're getting off track again. I need you to get us back on
Absolutely
track.
not. I'm having way too much fun on this show. This is what I'm here for, right?
Chaos.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, like what it comes down to, everyone's so concerned about rates, right?
Well, yeah, but isn't it a big deal with what
it's such a short-term concern. Sure, I mean, is it a big deal? Is it a big deal? Look at housing. Look at housing starts. Like you have got to stop wrapping your head around rates. Wrap your head around affordability. Can you afford the home now? That's because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Do you love the house and can you afford it? Right?
That
Rates
makes sense.
are going to go up. They're going to go down.
And when they go down,
I don't know why I feel so heated right now.
No, I know why. Because look, we're so conditioned to shop for things based on what the monthly payment is going to be. If we're borrowing money to buy it. Charlie, you were recently in the market to purchase a vehicle. I reckon one of the first things that the person who was selling you the car asked you is, what are you comfortable with in terms of a monthly payment? And if you answer that question with anything other than I'm most interested in what the out-the-door price is of the vehicle, you've just lost that negotiation, because no matter whatever it is you say, they're going to put you in the most expensive possible vehicle they can and find that monthly payment for you. And it's not going to be a good deal for you, most likely. So, little life pro tip as far as buying a car.
No, I wish I would have known that, because I did not say that. They didn't even offer me financing when I ended up buying this thing. The car that I purchased was in such demand that they didn't negotiate. In fact, they
Cash or walk.
is what it was, and then they started at $20,000 over manufacturer's suggested retail price.
That's wild, because I mean they're making money off the financing as well. I mean, we could get deep in the weeds on this one, but so just to kind of steer it back, toward the rails. Look, it's the same thing though with a home purchase. It's like the price that you end up agreeing to ends up being second place to what the monthly payment is going to be. And Joey, what I think you're trying to say, or you probably would have said if I hadn't hijacked you, is that it's backward thinking, because what you're shopping for is a price rather than shopping for the value of the thing.
Yeah, and bear in mind, again, demand is there, supply is not there, right? Demand is going to get worse as rates do come down, if they come down, when they come down. Right? So the thing that you could buy today at the rates available today is going to cost you as a dollar amount more, even with a lower rate, if you wait a year or two. At the end of the day, right? And that's simple economics. That's 101. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And let me suggest something else, which is that when rates come down, so why are rates high, right? Rates are high because the economy is good, to put it as simplistically as possible. When rates do come down, it means that we are going to be in a softer economy. I mean, that is, the real simplistic nuts and bolts of it. However you are feeling about your finances and the economic situation that you and your family are in now, it is going to be filtered through the lens of a softer economy. And so whatever anxieties you have right now, as far as, well, the rates are high, I want to wait, they're going to be replaced with a whole different set of anxieties when rates do come down, because you're going to go, well, maybe I can afford this more, but is my job as secure as it was 7 months ago, 10 months ago? Well, let's be a little more realistic. 18 months ago, when rates were at 7.5, 8, what the position I'd rather be in is I'd rather be at a 7.5 in a home that is suitable for my family. And then when the economy softens and things are a little less certain, I refinance into a 5.7, and now I'm sitting pretty, right?
Absolutely. All that
Yeah.
stuff makes sense.
If it was affordable when you bought it at that time and you refinance, now it's more affordable, right?
Absolutely.
Nice. Joey, if people have more questions about this and they want to get into a deeper discussion, how do they get hold of you?
Well, you can find me at thevaloannerd.com, across all social media as at the VA Loan Nerd, except for LinkedIn, where I'm Joey W. Mathews. Or you could give me a call at 630-235-2405. Feel free to text as well.
Mathews with 1 T.
Mathews with 1 T, that is correct.
Very
Pollock
important.
stuff.
Patrick, unbelievable. Patrick, I'm going to just push this right off on you if you don't mind. We wanted to talk about property taxes and why in Chicago, why in big cities do we find that property taxes are so high, but then you go out to, let's say, Coal City, and the property taxes out there for the same size house, even though the value's less, is probably going to be $2,000, $3,000.
You already said it. Even though the value is less, taxes are. There's a number of factors. It's so complicated.
But we have some neighborhoods that are a little depressed, and those houses are low value, but their taxes are still high.
Sure, but that. So right, it's complicated.
Life
is the easiest way to put it. So. Look, it has to do with so to answer the first question, right? Let's just take the simplest answer is that it's based on, in part, the assessed valuation. So if I have $1 million home, chances are my taxes are going to be higher than if I have a home of similar character in a place where it's worth more like $200,000. So,
Okay.
So from that simplistic perspective, that would explain the difference between those two tax bills. It's not simply based on the square footage of the lot, the home, how many bathrooms, bedrooms, etc. So then the next question you asked was why are there disparities in the amount of income tax, property tax, when you talk about comparing a home in one part of the state in a certain county to a home in another part of the state in another county. And it has to do with really what the expenses the government has in that particular area as opposed to the other area. And that was very vague. So let me see if I can make that a little bit more concrete. So take, for example, the southwestern townships in Cook County. They have to fund schools. They have to fund
Police, library, park district.
Well,
the pensions that go with them.
Some of that is going to be your property taxes. The most expensive part of your property tax. You look at your bill at the breakdown. You'll see, for the most part, that your biggest expense, property tax wise, is going to be schools. You'll see the local schools. You'll then see community college. You'll see forest preserve, water reclamation district, and so on and so forth. Fire, police, those sorts of things are going to be more the municipalities that are going to be responsible for that. So that is a different set of taxes that's going to cover that. Now, the reason schools are such a disparate amount and why we have such high property taxes here, as I understand it, is that schools are not, there's no real state funding for primary high school education. It all comes from local property
know that.
taxes. Yeah, so
Isn't it all part of that whole lottery system, though?
that's
Why are you laughing at me?
because we got scammed on that one by and large.
Who
yeah.
did that? The same tollway people?
Well, that's another interesting one. Well,
Our producer's head
you
just
know.
raised up over here.
Yeah,
I
remember-
hope I'm not going to touch on anything.
No.
Moving on.
Because no, listen, Charlie. You know what you're touching on is the promise that was made that was not kept, which is that we're only going to have tolls until we pay for this thing, and then we're going to take the toll booths down. Wow, imagine that they never ended up doing that. You know, don't ever. It's a mistake to think that any tax is going to be temporary, because once that income stream is coming in and they have funded a certain program or this, that, the other thing, it's hard to just take that away, right? And as it turns out, those
Somebody
tollways,
else has to pay for it then.
well, those tollways don't maintain themselves, and you know you only get so much federal funding for it. And yeah, once you have a toll, the toll is going to be there. I think we've all kind of learned that, and that's just how it is. And likewise, I wouldn't expect the state to start contributing more to to elementary and high school anytime soon. I mean, they've done nothing but effectively cut the amount they contribute to higher education, so much so that when in 1996 I was a freshman at U of I think the tuition was about $3,000. I'm pretty sure at this point it's north of $20,000 for in-state. Which
I think it's higher than that. I think that's. Did you say Illinois State or University of Illinois?
Either one. I mean,
Illinois State right now is 20.
That's madness. To my understanding, it used to be back in the day, and this is a fair gripe that younger generations have about older generations, which was that there was a point in time when 3% of the state budget went toward higher education, and that's why you had in the 70s you had people who were like, I had a summer job and it covered all my college expenses for the whole year. And it's like, well, sure, it was $30 a credit hour for you to go because it was so heavily subsidized by the state. And as time went on, and they're like, well, we need to cut somewhere. The amount of people paying college tuition is so small that constituency, more or less, gets left behind when you've got to really take a sharpened pencil to the budget. We just have more stuff we got to fund, and quite frankly, those folks, if you're going to U of I, as much as I hate to say it, you're largely going to be able to fend for yourself going forward, because that degree is absolutely a powerhouse. And I say that as an Illini. So anyone else want to complete the ILL?
INI.
There you go. That's what's up. So anyways, property taxes. Couple things that this is all sort of interesting and fun, but not particularly actionable. Those of you who are sitting in your cars or wherever you're sitting, who are waiting, they go to the mailbox every day looking for the second installment 2022 bill, you can relax. It's not likely to come until November 1st. Now, how does that affect the home buyer? Because this is the HomeBuyer's Hour after all.
Yeah.
Show at thehomebuyer'shour.com. Here's how it's affecting the home buyers. So, number one, when you buy a home, it is customary, and the contract that you are likely entering into has a provision for the seller to give to the buyer a credit for taxes that have accrued on the property, but yet have yet to been billed. So basically, whatever year you're closing in, you're paying last year's tax bill, and depending on which of the installments have been paid, first, second, or neither of them, that will determine how much the seller is going to give to you as the buyer to cover their portion of the prior year's taxes. Likewise, for the year that you're in that won't be billed to the following year, you get a prorated credit from January 1 to the date of closing, and it's typically going to be based on the last known tax bill. So right now we would take the 2021 bill, add 5 or 10% to it, and then calculate from there.
Why 5 or 10%?
Because the dogma is that the real estate taxes are going to be going up every year. It doesn't always track that way. If you want to look up your own real estate taxes, you can go to cookcountypropertyinfo.com. If you're outside of Cook County, just Google your county's treasurer. and you can find out. Usually they'll be able to show you, and you can. If you don't know your PIN, no worries. No one except for lawyers and other people that are connected with real estate would know it. On any of those websites, you should be able to search by the property address, and it'll show you last 5 years' taxes, and you can get a gist of what is likely to happen going forward. There's some exceptions there. Let's not get into that just yet. So when you're buying a home right now, more likely than not, and this is something that aggravates me. I'll tell you exactly why it aggravates me. Because the second installment is supposed to be due early August, lenders will be expecting that installment's due. Now the bill's not even out, so you can't pay it. And what most lenders are requiring, therefore, is for the buyer to set aside some money based on what that expected bill is going to be, and the title company will hold on to it until November, when that period is going to open up to pay that bill. And the amount that's being withheld is going to be usually at least 1.5 times what they're expecting. So if it's $4,000, for example, the title company is going to want to hold $6,000, and you go, that's annoying. I understand I'm going to have to pay that tax bill at some point, but I'd rather the title company not have $6,000 of my money until November. And really, I've got nothing for you. When they first started doing this in 2021, when we first started to have tardy tax bills, I was fighting tooth and nail that they don't do it, and they were just going, sorry, we're going to do it anyway. And I go, all right, you fight it a couple times, and when you realize there's not a winning move there, you just move on and you explain to the buyer what's going to happen. So what is going to happen is that when that bill is due, title company pays that bill, because that is what the lender needs to have happen for reasons. And then you're gonna seem magical. The title company's gonna cut you a check for the $2,000, which is using the example that I just used, and you're gonna get in the mail, and you're gonna forget this all happened, and you're gonna get in the mail this check for $2,000, which is just them returning your money, but it's gonna feel like a windfall. But that okay, fine. That's not really my beef. That whole process is just what it is. But some title companies are charging like $200 to do the admin on it. So basically, for their accountant to keep track of it, and then they charge another $50 when for the paying of the tax bill. Which, if you've paid a tax bill, it's not a $50 effort, but because it's a for-profit business, they go, this is what it costs us to pay this person to do it, and so we add our margin on, and that's why it costs $50. I'd love to just sit around paying tax bills all day for $50 a crack. I wouldn't have to sit here. I would just work for an hour and a half and be done. But it's just
that would be pretty cool. Wouldn't it? I'm doing math in my head right now. It takes me about 30 seconds to write a check. Maybe a minute. I got a long day.
Oh, Charlie's still writing checks.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Is it?
It's funny.
Oh, that's all right. Now you follow up with Boomer.
Okay, Boomer. No, it's funny. My form email when a closing is scheduled used to say, bring your government ID, bring your checkbook in case there's a little bit we're a little bit under on the estimate for cash to close. And I started to get messages from people like, well, I don't have a checkbook. Do I need to go to the bank and get some checks? I'm like, no, you don't. That's a bridge too far. So now I had to add into the form, if you have one.
I love it. I love it. Believe it or not, I still do have
That's
checks
good forward
and
thinking.
checkbooks. No lie on that.
Yeah,
So,
you always have to adjust.
One of the things I did notice, too, is by counties, things are a little bit different. So maybe you can help me understand why this happened to me. When I lived in Elmhurst,
You were in DuPage?
I was in DuPage County. The assessed value was 30% of the value of the property. So, at that time, the house was worth a little over $100,000. So they were charging me or saying that I would pay taxes on $30,000, when it comes to it. But I still paid a lot in taxes. I bought a brand new construction house in Will County. I moved out to Plainfield. And then all of a sudden, my assessed value now is $400,000. Because they're going at 100% of what it costs when I bought the house.
Yeah.
Is that just by county? Is that just a number? You know,
Well, usually the big differences are between Cook County and everyone else. So basically, the long and short of it is Cook County is chaos, and everywhere else is pretty calm and low key. Now, as far as explaining the difference between DuPage and Will, I wouldn't expect there to be a big difference. Now, they may be doing math differently. So if your assessed valuation is based on a percentage, so in Cook County, they use 10% of what the fair market value is of the real estate to figure out your assessed valuation, and then they multiply that by the numbers that they need to come up with your tax bill. Outside of Cook County, it's typically a third, but it's just a different set of figures. The reason that your bills are so high out in the suburbs is because you don't have the industrial base to contribute. So
good point.
So for example, my condo is worth about what my mom's last townhouse was worth. I pay about $5,500 a year, I would say. She was paying north of 13 grand. And why is that? Because out in Palatine Township, which each county is divided into townships, let's not get into the weeds on that. But you're paying for, not only are you paying for schools and paying a lot more. I mean, I went to Fremd High School, and it's a very good high school, and the property tax bills reflect the amount that's being invested in those schools.
Yeah.
Now, I live near the Loop, and so not only do I have, there's a lot more properties within the locality, but also we've got a giant commercial high rises that are paying not their fair share, but it's still a large number if you just take it at face value, and that's all contributing toward ultimately what it's meant to be is once you establish assessed valuations and you figure out what are the budgets for each of these agencies that is funded by your property tax, you're just paying your fair share of that bill. So if the Water Reclamation District needs $1 billion, they're going to divide up the cost of that based on your percentage share of that billion.
And I think that's the key is right there. It's how much does the entity need to spend? How much is it going to cost me to pay the teachers, maintain the building, put the heat on, everything else? That's where the big budget comes in. This is how much money I need. Now, everybody else has to pay for it, but how much? And it's all going to be based on a small percentage. Is that fair?
More or less, yeah.
More or less.
And so if you then consider the fact that my building has 184 units, let's say on average we're paying $8,000 a unit, times 184, and just look around at all the the buildings that are separated into individual pins. You then start to get an idea of why my tax bill would be $5,500 to fund all of the government agencies and their budgets, as opposed to out in the township you were in, where everyone is in a single-family detached home, more or less, and
Most of us.
Yeah, and you're not talking about having large commercial entities, industrial entities paying a big piece of that bill. So it's property taxes. I mean, you could talk forever about it and just bore everyone to tears. Quite frankly, I mean, there's a handful of people that are probably really interested, and the rest have already tuned out. Fair enough. That's fine, no problem. But in my personal opinion, I think that they are made overly complicated on purpose, because if we all knew how the sausage was made, we wouldn't eat it. We'd even there you go.
Yeah.
We'd be even more upset at how it all is shaken out.
So my wife appeals our taxes every year. Every year.
Yeah, thanks to wise
And they
move.
always lower them every year. We don't go to court. We don't do anything. She just fills out a piece of paper, and our taxes go down. First they go up, and then she brings them back down again. Mm-hmm. Is this something that everybody should be doing, or am I punishing my neighbor and making them pay more?
I mean, the answer to both those questions is, the first question is probably yes. The second question is definitely yes.
Okay.
Look, if your assessed valuation is going down, you're paying less as a share of the full amount. If your neighbor is not also doing the same thing, thus they are paying a higher share. Now, is it fair or not? I have to see the numbers and kind of figure it out, but probably not. And that leads me to another point, which is that this whole system isn't fair. And a lot of it is...
Life isn't fair.
Well, there's no question about that. My dad used to say that all the time. And, you know, ever since that lesson was drilled into me so hard, you know, it's my mission in life to make sure people get treated fairly. Well, one mission. The other one is to make enough money to go, you know, lay on a beach and listen to this show on YouTube instead of being a participant. But alas, here I am, and
we'll
will
work on
for quite some time, you know, going forward. Anywho, so if you look at, I'm going to make a graph with my hands. So if you're listening on the radio, my apologies. But this is the graph. So this is if everyone's starting at 0. This is where the property taxes for residential are going, and then this is the over time where the property taxes for commercial are going. And why is that? If you own commercial property, more likely than not, you're familiar with some of the more sophisticated things that one can do to lower your tax bill, and you're incentivized to do so because you own that property strictly as an investment, and you're trying to make money with it, and so you're certainly far more likely to be appealing if you are an owner of commercial property, industrial property. You know, it's your business, as opposed to if you just own your house, your business is probably another business. You know, if you sell cars, if you, you know, basically anything else, you're not likely to be aware of this. Now, your wife is, because she's a smart lady, no question about that. I mean, she married you, which makes me question a little bit, you know, but...
You know I could hear you.
Oh, shoot.
So if somebody does
teasing,
have questions about the taxes and stuff, can they reach you and talk to you about this?
No.
No?
He's a real estate attorney, not a tax attorney.
Slide into my DMs. No, seriously though, I can help, and this is something that I definitely want people to call me about, because I know exactly who to put you in touch with.
Good.
Who is probably the best guy in the area to do that. So yeah, absolutely. Reach out to me, slide into my DMs. This is something I don't mind being called about. 773-632-8330. If you
Say it again, please.
773-632-8330. If you just want to complain about your landlord, or you want to, I don't know. And if you just want to complain about things, don't call me. But if you want to complain about real estate taxes, then yeah, fine, do call me.
I love it. And just so everybody knows, Patrick and I, we do answer the phone 24/7. So anywhere from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, you could call me. Anywhere from 7 at night to 7 in the morning, you could call Patrick.
I got called by a solicitor this morning, and not a solicitor in like the sense that they call lawyers in the UK. A solicitor that was trying to sell me something at 8:30, and as soon as you get that little pause, and it's about to be something you don't like, and I'm just like, I said some words that I would be in trouble if I said them right here, and it's before 9 a.m. and I just hung up.
I am not good with them. I'm sorry.
Just don't do that.
No, I hear you. Well, I'm going to go ahead and take the last few minutes that we have here and talk a little bit about radon. And I want to do a little test, all right? I know it's exciting, isn't it, Joey? So a little bit of test, Joey. What percentage of home buyers do you believe take or have their homes tested for radon by an outside company when they buy it?
Probably, I would say 10% or less, honestly.
10 or less. Patrick, what do you think?
More like 5.
5?
Yeah, 5%.
Well, we're at 30.
No kidding.
All right,
wow.
And I try to talk people out of it.
Yeah.
You know, so about 30% of our clients end up getting a radon test done. And Patrick and I were talking about this a little bit earlier, and I think his numbers are a little bit on the higher end. I think it's a lot cheaper. But a lot of people don't realize what it costs to mitigate a radon problem. It doesn't matter how high it is. You know, just because the numbers of radon level, or they measure it in picocuries per liter. So if you get super high numbers on the picocurie per liter, then it still costs the same amount of money to fix that problem as if it was low, you know, where it came into it. So here's another test question, Joey. How much do you think it costs in the Chicagoland area to mitigate a radon problem?
To mitigate a radon problem?
Yeah.
$4,000.
$4,000.
Now-
And we got a shaker header over here with Patrick. Patrick, what do you think?
Well, I'm about to go into business and start charging Joey $4,000 to
There it is.
mitigate radon, because that
Or
is.
he'll subcontract you.
I don't mess with that stuff.
I'm just calling the first result on Google, because that arbitrage works really well. So, to my understanding, anywhere between like 1,200 and 2,500.
And I think that's pretty accurate. And I usually tell people between 1,000 and 2,000. There's plenty of people that go ahead and do it. And to fix a radon problem, I think I'd like to explain that. It's what they call a sub-slab depressurization system, all right? So what they're going to do is drill a hole in the basement floor. They're going to stick a pipe in that hole. They're going to run the pipe outside and up over the roof line. Sometimes they run it inside the house if it's new construction, but most of the time for pre-existing, they're going to run it straight outside the building and then go up above the roof line. And then they're going to put a vacuum cleaner on it or a fan. That fan you can buy for $150. You know, it's not an expensive tool. And that fan will run 24/7. And what it does is it creates a negative pressure. What causes it creates a negative pressure underneath the basement floor. And a lot of people don't realize what brings radon into the house is something called a stack effect. So when a house is being heated and it's warm, hot air is naturally going to rise. And as it rises, it's going to be leaving out through the attic, because most of us are going to end up having gaps around our light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, electrical fixtures, anything that allows that air to move through the house. And it's actually going to pull soil gases into the house. Now, radon is a byproduct, and it's really radium is what we're worried about. But radon is what we measure. And the earth begins with uranium, and uranium is radioactive. And as it breaks down, one of the byproducts is going to be radium. And we measure the radon, and what happens is it has a very short lifespan, and if it gets into our lungs and it breaks down in there, it causes lung cancer. After cigarette smoking, it's the number 2, leading cause of lung cancer. So testing, I am an advocate for testing for radon. I will not argue that in the least bit. But we got some areas here, and I guess I should back up. In Illinois, radon testers, or they're called technicians and professionals, and radon mitigators are licensed by the Illinois Emergency Management Agency, IEMA. And what's cool about that is every single radon test that gets done in the state of Illinois gets tracked. So they know the address, they know what the radon levels are, they know the zip codes, and we could find all that stuff. And we kind of developed a little system where we can go ahead and type in a zip code, and I could tell you what percentage was over the action level. The action level is 4 picocuries per liter. And once we get over that, we should be putting in a radon mitigation system. But I could find out what those are. Now, we charge $260 to do a radon test. And of course, times might go up depending on when you're going to be hearing this. Mm-hmm. But we charge $260 to do a radon test. But our people have to be licensed. We do pay our people well. Each one of our machines, because when it's being done for a radon test, we need those results right away. The machines have to be in the house for a minimum of 48 hours. And we want to be able to get the results right away so that we can get as much information as we can, as fast as we can, so people can make an educated decision. So that stuff has to be calibrated, and we're able to get the results right away. That's why we charge what we do. But our state law allows you to do a radon test in your own home using just simple charcoal canisters. And they sell those at Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, True Values. And there's a time, and it goes on and off all the time. If you go to IEMA on their website, they'll give you these radon tests for free. All right, so, and you just set them up, you put them out in the open for 2 days, seal them up, follow directions, mail them to a lab. It'll take a few days to get there, but then they're going to email you the results. That cost with lab fees and everything else is less than $50. So the real question comes down to, do I pay Charlie's company to do the radon testing, or do I do it on my own? And everything comes down to risk and rewards. So do I spend $260 for a chance to negotiate for $1,500? I'm going to use a middle number, all right? Or do I wait till I own a house and then I spend $50, but knowingly that if it's high, I'm going to be spending that $1,500. Now, what's really cool about using the state's website, nothing is guaranteed. Every house is different. I got to throw that disclaimer in there. However, using the state history and stuff, we could see how many times we were over the action level. For example, Lakeview, Lincoln Park, parts of Evanston, the Gold Coast. Most of these areas right along Lake Michigan in there, the radon levels were like 2s. Not one in those areas, not one measurement was over the action level ever since we started recording radon, which is in the late 90s of the last century, right?
I think I'm gonna I'm gonna jump in just because I remember we were talking to I think it was your buddy who does the magic for the
Greg Dimple.
Yes, I think it was Greg explained that to the point you're making that one of the reasons for what you're talking about data-wise is that when radon is more likely to show up when earth has been disturbed more recently. In those areas, it's going to be far less likely that someone has dug a foundation recently. So, but there's no contesting the numbers that you're talking about.
No, there isn't. But a lot of those areas also do not have perimeter drain tile systems in them. And if you think about that for a little bit, we're putting perforated tubes in the earth below our foundation, running them into a sump pit that's inside our house, and that's all left in the open. So now if we have a negative pressure in the house, we have this big pipe, this big 2-foot, 3-foot wide pipe that's allowing all those soil gases to come into the house.
Well, let me really quick. So, but doesn't a sump pit typically have some water in it where to the point where it's like a toilet, right? Where the fumes don't come in because there's the S curvy thing. So the fumes couldn't come in.
I'm giggling over here with the S curvy thing, just so you know.
P-trap? I don't know.
There it is.
I don't know.
So that part is true. However, we're supposed to get the water below the drain tiles. So we're not filled up over those drain tiles, and that's what doesn't stop it.
Gotcha.
Now, in Chicago, in the beginning, when we built most of these homes, we didn't go that deep. So we really don't have perimeter drain tiles in our city of Chicago homes, all right? So most of that stuff gets sealed up like there's no tomorrow. So that makes it difficult.
Gotcha.
So if anybody is interested in finding out what the radon levels are, or you want more coaching on how to test it, like I said, I am an advocate for testing for radon. I'm just not an advocate for paying somebody $260, $200, $300, to go ahead and do the test for me when you could really, it's simple. Open up a couple of canisters and close them up and mail them 2 days later.
Maybe, but I think there's some value also to the licensed professional doing it. I would in some ways feel more comfortable with a licensed pro doing it. And is it worth the extra $200? I think to a lot of people it is.
All right. And Patrick, one last time, and Joey, we're coming to you next. We don't have much time left.
Hit me up.
How do people get hold of you?
Hit me up on Instagram, Loftus_law. Hit me up on TikTok, Loftus Law. LinkedIn. I don't know if you're boring on LinkedIn. Just search my name.
And Joey, please.
Well, you can find me at thevaloannerd.com. Find me on social media at the VA Loan Nerd. Call or text me at 630-235-2405.
And one question, Joey. Do mortgage companies look at radon test?
No.
Not at all. Okay.
Nope.
And I don't think it's part of the minimum property requirements either, is it?
Nope.
All right.
No, the less you tell the mortgage broker, only tell the mortgage broker what they ask about.
Sounds good. And
Yes,
again, my
sir.
name is Charlie Bellefontaine. We're at the end of our hour. My phone number is 312-544-9180. At least I hope that's what it is, because I might have forgotten it. And other than that, again, my name is Charlie, and I am out.